Right. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm George Latimer, Westchester County Executive, and I'm joined by a number of people who I'm going to introduce in a second, representing the state, Westchester County, the town of Yorktown, and many of our various services. We're here to do our briefing because we are at ground zero of what happened that was most problematic in Westchester County in the snowstorm. Yorktown, its neighboring community of Somers, and you can go through the northern tier of this county to Bedford and Poundridge and North Castle, bore the brunt of the storm that happened last night, on top of having borne the heaviest burden from last Friday's windstorm. So we're dealing here so that you could understand that as we talk statistics, we're also talking about human beings. We're talking about individuals whose lives have been disrupted now for a week because of this, and the people who are doing their very best to try to resolve those problems. I'm going to first introduce the names of the individuals who are here, and then a number of them are going to have a chance to talk. And then obviously when we're finished with the whole thing, any of our individuals are more than happy to take a one-on-one interview as you see fit. I'm joined and very happy to have some representatives from New York State with us today. Down with us our State Director of Operations, Kathy Calhoun. Kathy, thank you for being in Westchester as you have. My colleague when I served in the State Senate, good friend, State Senator Terrence Murphy, who you know is a Yorktown man, former member of the council here. Also former colleague, I guess I have held a lot of jobs here over the years, Westchester County Legislator Mike Kaplowitz, who's been very forceful on these issues here. We have Yorktown Supervisor Elon Gilbert, who will be speaking and talking very specifically about this. And we're most appreciative of the role and the work of Yorktown Police Chief Robert Noble, who is our host here today, and whose men and women of this department have been on the front lines of dealing with this, along with the DPW, EMS, fire professionals, and so forth. We're also joined by members of the Yorktown Council, Tom Diana and Ed Lachterman, both of whom are here as well. And we have other members of the council that may join us, Vishnu Patel and Alice Roker. Kevin Byrne, the state assemblyman for this area, is right now dealing with a crisis situation up in Putnam County. Could not be with us here, but wanted to be here and is dealing with this issue up in Putnam County. We also have from the state Public Service Commissioner John Rhodes, and we have Todd Westhouse, Chief of Staff for the DOT in this region. Todd has been a great friend with us on transportation issues on sunnier days. Now, of course, we're dealing with a crisis situation all across the board. So let me just give a brief general update of where we are. Last night's snowstorm took us in the opposite direction of where we were. We were unhappy as a county and as municipalities in the response of the various utilities to this point. What progress had been made has been, to the greatest extent, undone and made worse in places in Yorktown and Somers. Now, no one blames any specific individual for what Mother Nature has done. That is beyond our control. But we are, at this moment, with 29,653 Con Ed customers that are out of service. That's up significantly from where we were a day ago. And we have NYSEG's figure stands at 18,059. Also a very significant service. Now, Yorktown has both Con Edison and NYSEG customers, but the storm did not differentiate which part of Yorktown it hit. So in both cases, there have been trees down. I am driving around myself, just trying to make the drive from I-684 over on 35. A couple of detours were necessary because even on a main road like 35, to keep that clear is a task to be done. And as we've talked about many times before, it takes cooperation and coordination between the utilities and the municipal public works services. That coordination is essential. I've heard some stories where some of the utilities are trying to throw it back on the towns, not just Yorktown but others, and saying we can't do this until the town does this. A fallen tree with live wires, that process begins with the utility company having professionals there who handle high voltage situations, assessing the situation, turning off the power. Then the local DPW or the areas where the county is supporting the local DPW can come in and remove the impediment. And I might add, when there are no wires there, we see that portion of the process happen very quickly and very efficiently. Then the utility company workers come back and they restore the power to those individuals as part of that loop. Obviously, in this part of the county, you have a less dense population spread out over a larger area. It's a beautiful community. Let's all come back in the springtime to enjoy the beauty of the trees. But for right now, the trees, when they come down, become a major obstacle that you don't see in some of our urban settings in this county. So to look at where we are right now, we have a crisis on our hands. We have a crisis that requires the coordination between the state and the county and the local governments. And as I said earlier, the work of the state and the local government have really been exemplary. And I'm certainly happy to say that I think at the county level we've tried to work with both of our partners in government as efficiently as possible. From the county government standpoint, the weather is favorable, so there is no questions about the operations of Westchester County Airport. It will remain open. We expect as many flights as can be rescheduled by the airlines will fly in and out of Westchester. Our Beeline bus service will operate as normal today to the greatest extent possible. There may be some issues of snow removal in a few areas, but functionally the Beeline system operates as is. We are continuing to offer the county center as a warming station for daytime purposes, for respite. As I've said over the past few days, these warming centers have not gotten a universal large attendance here in the northern part of the county. There have been people that have used the service in other parts of the county, since you're reporting all across the county. In other parts of the county, there have not been as much, but we have people that have been out of power now into a seventh day. And the temperature is getting colder now than it was over the first few days of this. So the centers will continue to be open. They will continue to be there, and we encourage people who can use them to use them. We continue to provide Playland parking lot as the staging area for our out-of-town mutual aid. I survey that every day. It's in my area of the county. We have a tremendous amount of committed people who've come all the way from Indiana, Wisconsin, Quebec, Texas, Tennessee. They're a long way from home. They're not living a comfortable lifestyle here. They're working 12-hour shifts, 17-hour shifts. We have great respect for what they've done, and we have a debt of gratitude that we will express in due time. I'm sure my friend Terrence and I will figure out how from New York State we can make a statement for Indiana and Wisconsin and these other areas to tell them how much we appreciate what they've done. I also want to highlight more directly the work that's been done by our local DPWs, EMS, fire, and police departments. These are the moments that you pay your taxes for. I've heard many people say, what do they do? How are their services? And then a moment like this comes, and you may have a medical emergency, and you need that EMS driver to somehow make it through bad weather, work around all of the impediments in the road. You need a fire department, fire professionals who will go out and put out a fire. You need police professionals to handle what they can do. And we've been very fortunate the state has contributed quite a lot of members of the National Guard to help us do some of those functions. I just went through one of the busiest intersections in the county, just down the road where 35-118 makes the turn, and you have professionals out there directing traffic because the lights aren't going to be able to do it effectively. Only a professional will be able to handle that. So thank you on behalf of a grateful county for what the state has done. In the height of the storm yesterday, they were out there, the first responders, and they were doing a terrific job, and we're very, very, very happy to do it. The Westchester County Emergency Operations Center in Hawthorne remains open all day today. Its function is to coordinate information between the municipalities, the various agencies, and also with the utilities. Now, I was very critical yesterday of the utility management. Let us be clear. I'm not critical of the line employees who are out there hanging out in a bucket truck 30 feet above the ground trying to handle high voltage powers. They are heroes of this story. And many of the mid-managers, the people who are serving as liaisons inside centers like this, are also doing their very, very best. I'm critical of those in suits in corporate boardrooms who are not facing the public. They're not listening to the stories that we're going to hear in the next few minutes. They're not making themselves available in person to come out and come down Route 35 and see what there is to see in Somers and Yorktown. And I'm talking about senior executives. And I believe that is part of how you gain sensitivity for the urgency of the problem. When you see it for yourself, when you see the human need, when you see how complicated it is, it affects the way you make decisions. And one of the biggest concerns that I've had is that there's been a bloodless attempt to try to identify what percentage of people are on board. The percentage does not show the specific need of the specific individual. But a Yorktown police officer who goes to that site and looks, they understand what that personal story is. Now, there has to be a way to take that personal reality and put that into the decision-making process. And I also said yesterday, and it bears repeating, Those of us in public office are directly accountable. There are elections whenever they come up, 2 years and 4 years. And we have to defend the things we've done and said. And we do it in a competitive environment where someone will be saying the exact opposite. I've been in business, and in most businesses there's direct competition. If you open up a gas station on the corner, there's a gas station on the other corner. You compete with them, and the service you provide and what you provide inside for convenience, that gives you a competitive advantage or disadvantage, and you have to hustle and work. And in business, if you fail to do that, you go out of business. But utilities are in a different situation. They have carved out turf because it has been felt by the society that it's more efficient not to have competing utilities in a single area. And so when they bid and they are structured to provide whatever that service is, telephone service, cable service, whatever it is, that they have a unique situation where they're not as accountable structurally as a business person is or as an elected official is. Those folks have to understand the pain and suffering is so great that they can't sit back and say, well, I don't have to be accountable legally until the PSC has a hearing in Albany sometime in the next 2 months. I have to be accountable now, right now. And that is what I have called for. We'll talk about that more tomorrow. But the calling for accountability is not about accountability in 2 months. It's about accountability right now. How many crews do you have? How have you allocated them? When you allocate them, have you talked to the people who are running Yorktown, the police chief and the elected officials of Yorktown? And do you have them out there going to the areas that can do the most good, or are you sitting in a corporate boardroom deciding how much of this and using statistics instead of personal stories to make your decisions? That's why I was outraged. I lost my temper yesterday, but I haven't lost my passion. I have been in both business and in government over a long period of time. I've thought a lot about how organizations are organized, and I've been involved in many different kinds of organizations. What I see is a deficiency, and that deficiency needs to be corrected. But for right now, what we need to correct is the problems of reestablishing heat. So first I'll turn to our partner at the state level, State Director of Operations, Kathy Calhoun. Again, we're very grateful for the role of the state.
Thank you so much, County Executive, and we appreciate your hospitality in the county. You guys have been great. That everyone at the EOC has been great, and so wonderful to be working side by side with you all there. This last week has been extremely challenging for our communities throughout the Hudson Valley, and I'm here to let you all know today that New York is standing by your side. We've been here before the storm came, and we will be here and when the last power line is fixed. We're going to continue to do everything we can to get everyone's lives back up to normal and back to reality. As you know, last weekend the governor declared a state of emergency for 4 counties: Sullivan, Dutchess, Westchester, and Putnam. Those 4 declarations remain in effect, and we'll continue our recovery efforts for the county. So yesterday at noon, we were happy, or getting happier. We're down to 26,000 statewide outages. We were happy about that. This morning, this afternoon, statewide, we're back at 155,000. That's a lot of people without power. And we are all as frustrated as the next one. But it's not acceptable, the response from some of our utility companies. It's just simply not okay. The governor has directed Chairman Rhodes to conduct an investigation, a full review of the utility companies, and he will be doing so immediately upon conclusion of this storm. I'm sure he will be back in the community to talk to you, County Executive, and to all the town supervisors to hear your stories as well. And you can be assured when we do this review, we're going to be watching their response to this storm right now and making sure that they are doing everything that they can. Dealing with the aftermath of storms is nothing for New York, and if the utilities are found to not have done their job, you can be assured they'll be held fully accountable. Aside from the power issues, New York has taken a number of actions under the governor's direction to help support your communities. We've deployed 400 National Guard men and women to conduct wellness checks. They've been helping with clearing debris, partnering with the communities, partnering with towns, partnering with the local DPW, partnering with the state Department of Transportation as well. Governor has ordered all hands on deck. We have had conversations right now with agencies that are assisting in one way or another. Department of Transportation, DEC, Homeland Security, NYPA, PSC, the National Guard, the Thruway Authority, the State Police, and New York State Parks. All have been called to action, providing some sort of service throughout the affected area. I did want to remind everyone that we do have a hotline set up. The number is 866-697-2434. Hotline will remain in effect for any questions or comments from the community that we may be able to be helpful with. And I just, again, want to say thank you to the customers that are without power, who got their power back only to have it taken away again. You know, we're here for you. The county executive, the senator, all the town supervisors, they've been working very, very closely with our deputy secretary for intergovernmental affairs. Letizia Tagliaferro is here. She's been in touch with everyone on a very regular basis. I encourage everyone to continue those communications. She and her team have been incredible, incredible for the communities, pushing the information up, talking to the brass at each one of the utility companies. So please keep those lines of communications open. Continue to work with our folks at OEM. Any requests that you have, we will do absolutely everything in our power to help fulfill those requests. And again, County Executive, it is unfortunate that we're here under these circumstances, but I couldn't think of a better partner. So thank you for everything that you're doing.
Thank you very much, Kathy. It's extremely presumptuous of me to visit Yorktown and introduce the next speaker, because he is as identifiable with Yorktown as any person I know. He's a local businessman as well as a local medical professional. He served on the Yorktown Council. He and I have had the pleasure of serving with him for 3 years in the New York State Senate, and he is the state senator for which most of this devastation has affected. His district includes all of this northern Westchester piece that's affected, as well as going up into Putnam and Dutchess County. Senator Terrence Murphy.
Thank you, County Executive.
Terrence.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming to our rescue up here. Yeah, I know you've been devastated down there, but this has been an unprecedented week. Bigger than Superstorm Sandy. 2 nor'easters within a week. The devastation, as you can see, just look outside. People have been without power for over a week. We've had 77 people literally on life support that we've had to go out and make sure that they have had a generator hooked up, or they've had electricity stored, or brought them to a hospital. We've had 158 people in critical care conditions that are being contacted once, if not twice a day, to make sure that they're okay. We understand that Mother Nature reaped its wicked head down here, but it's our obligation to make sure that we take care of the people. And that starts with all of our elected officials, from the governor's office, which we've been in close contact with since day one, to all of our elected officials, to the local town supervisors, to the county executive, to the county legislators. And this guy back here, I don't know if he's even slept yet in the past week, Chief Noble. He's had a command center downstairs that has been nonstop. But this is something that the utility companies, I've already called for a hearing. I chair government operations and investigations for the state of New York, and I can promise you, you will have some answers within a few weeks. This is completely unacceptable to have gone this long, and like the county executive said, it is not the people that are out there 30 feet in the air. In full disclosure, I used to be one of them. I used to go out and trim the trees for Aspen Tree Company. Those guys are busting their butt out there. When you see them, thank them. We are, like the county exec, Kathy had said, we are still under a state of emergency for Westchester County, Dutchess County, Putnam County, and Sullivan County. Westchester County, Putnam County, and Dutchess County is my entire district. We've been from Putnam all over Westchester yesterday. The only communication that we've possibly had is through social media. So we've asked the town supervisors, the police, to just bombard us so we can continue to get it out there. We've been in contact with the EOC from the county to the governor, to the governor's office in order to push as much as we could to let people know what's actually really happening out there. The lack of communication on the utility companies to the local municipalities, to the county, to the state is just completely unacceptable. I just want to thank the utility companies that came in from Maine, Indiana, Texas, some of them from California. Yesterday, we got 34 trucks down from Quebec, Canada, and Plattsburgh, Binghamton, and our National Guard. They are doing the best job on the streets like we are. But at the end of the day, the most important thing to do right now is to get electricity on and get these people's lives back restored and back to proper functioning. So right now, the objective is to try and restore as much people as we can and get their electricity back on, and then we will go through some of the hearings and investigations on a further date. But I just would like to thank everybody for teaming up. Unfortunately, Mother Nature has not been too kind to us. We have to deal with these things, and we're trying our best, but we need some cooperation from the utility companies too. So we will get back to you on a later date on that. I'd just like to thank County Executive for coming up here and being part of the team. Thanks.
Thanks, Senator. Thanks very much, Senator. Our next speaker is also a longtime friend of mine, and I've admired him for a long time for his service to this area in the county legislature. He served brilliantly as chairman of the Board of Legislators, and just a few days ago showed his intense care for his people by going in and facing up against some of the people that weren't being as sensitive and as understanding of the utility companies as they are. So I introduce a person you know very well in this area, County Legislator Mike Kaplowitz.
Thank you. Thank you, County Executive. Welcome to Ground Zero. My role today is to report from the field. First, I do want to thank you very much for being here and for your intense focus on behalf of the entire county. Thanks to our hosts today, the supervisor and the chief, and our great senator and council people and county other officials, John Testa, who I represent this town with down in the county. I represent Yorktown, Somers, Newcastle. Interestingly, I'm probably one of the only straddle legislators there. I represent both Con Ed and NYSEG. Somers is only NYSEG, Newcastle's only Con Ed. Yorktown has the pleasure of having both Con Edison and NYSEG, which just complicates things that much more. I have here a map that was just sent to me from EOC in Somers, and there are a lot of yellow and red and blue pins, and they're growing by the moment. These are blocked roads. It's almost as if a military campaign was staged against us. Last week, the Air Force came in and took out all our critical infrastructure. This past week, just yesterday, we had tanks and artillery that were coming at us. I'm fearful Monday is going to be the infantry, and we are losing our ability to get around. We have lost our ability to, at this point, have some very basic necessities. The good news is that we here, along with the entire county and the region, are resilient. And the people with understanding, with as much patience, though it's been stretched, the rubber band certainly by all honest fashion has been stretched as far as possible, recognize that it is Mother Nature, but are certainly desirous of and hopeful that all parties can do everything possible from Public Service Commission through the Governor's office on down to clear the roads and restore the power. A couple of days ago, I had the pleasure of visiting Brewster, New York State Electric and Gas. I wasn't necessarily invited to their facility. It's a very lovely facility, and I wound up making my way through their security, got into their inner sanctum, and had a very, I won't say a pleasant opportunity to sit with them, but certainly a productive opportunity to recognize that this was at least the seat of NYSEG's opportunity to stage and to incident command. And in that regard, my goal was to really underscore how frustrated and how necessary it was that they did everything they possibly could, substantively and technically and with alacrity, to get us up and going. It was working. Yesterday came along. We've been knocked back, and Newcastle and Yorktown and Somers are back to the thousands. Thank you, Mr. County Executive. Ladies and gentlemen, please help us clear the roads, help us de-electrify, help us then get the assessments going, help us be able to move in the area of restoration as soon as possible, because this has been ground zero. We had the pleasure of having the most snowfall yesterday, and these are distinctions that we do not want to wallow in nor take note of, but we at the same time are resilient enough to recognize that we have a job to do, but so does everybody else. So please, thank you, and anything you can do to get the utilities doing their job as soon as possible would be most appreciated by a lot of cold and tired and hungry and lonely and scared and frustrated people. Needless to say, I don't think the school kids up here have been to school in quite some time. It's over a week, and that's not a good thing as well. Thank you all very much.
Our host in the town is Elon Gilbert, who's the town supervisor for Yorktown. He and I both took on our positions on January 1st. So this being the 67th day of our respective terms, we have been baptized by wind, we've been baptized by snow. But I would argue that, you're tested. If you're tested early and you're found to be ready for the task, then you have a better opportunity to perform the rest of the task for the rest of our respective terms. Lanny has been tested, and he and his board have been dealing with this on the ground level. Lanny?
Thank you so much, County Executive. I want to thank everybody for, yes, I've been recently minted as the town supervisor, but as a result, and facing this crisis right now, I am so fortunate to have people who have already dealt with these types of crises in the past to give me assistance and advice, and I am here to accept any and all advice that I can utilize to get what my constituents need. I am thankful for the entire spectrum, from the people all the way up to the governor's office, through the county executive's office, and then also my compatriots here on the local level, Tommy Diana, Ed Lackerman, and State Senator, and Kevin Byrne. And I couldn't do anything without my chief of police here, and someone who's not here is my highway superintendent, David Pagnelli. We are, I think people may begin to wonder about our phone calls because I'm always on the phone, either with the chief or with Dave for the last 2 weeks. And I just want to, again, I thank everyone who, I'm proud of this community that with all the turmoil that we've seen, that we've been able to pull this together. This morning I was asked to host this event for the county executive, and I did so, and within minutes, we were able to, and this is one of the wonderful things about this. There's a lot to say about the utilities. I believe it's been said. But what I think needs to be said is there's more that unites us as individuals who serve our community than divides us, and this is a perfect example. I was able to pull all our representatives together within minutes because they want to express what I've been hearing on the phone every day, and what they've been hearing on the phone every day, and we want to represent the people that we represent. And I want to thank you all for coming to Yorktown because you're telling it as it is. That was one last thing, and I just want to say there are two things that I want. I want power back for my community, and I want the truth. As long as they tell us the truth. We were told immediately after the first storm that we were going to get, most of our people were going to get power back, 90% in 48 hours. It just simply wasn't the truth. I knew, based upon what I was seeing out on the roads, that wasn't true, and I couldn't communicate that to my people because I was embarrassed to basically tell them that it was something that I knew was going to happen that wasn't going to happen. And I think that's the biggest thing that we need. One of the things we need to get is the truth from the utilities. And again, not the people who are there working on the lines right now. I can't praise them enough as well, but it's the executives and the people who are running the utilities. That's who we need to hold accountable. And thank you.
Before we have Chief Noble and then we go to questions, what you've just heard from Elon Gilbert as supervisor of Yorktown, you will hear the same thing from Chris Burdick, the supervisor of Bedford. You will hear the same thing from Mike Shalero, the supervisor of North Castle. You may not know all the geography, but you'll hear the same thing from Supervisor Linda Puglisi of Cortland. You'll hear the same thing from Mayor Andre Rainey of Peekskill. You'll hear the same thing from Bob Greenstein, supervisor of Newcastle. When you go from community to community to community, you will hear local officials who are tasked with directing, ultimately, police, EMS, DPW resources, being unable to get the kind of information they need in order to effectively work with the utility companies. The utility companies have decided not to share information easily as to how many crews they have and what they have prioritized in the different situations that they would go out in. I would argue that the police force of a community knows the community better than any other entity would. They're in and out of policing it every single day. And I would assume that if Chief Noble knows where the immediate best place to go in Yorktown is, I don't want somebody sitting down in Lower Manhattan overriding that based on some other set of priorities that they may have that might involve profit, might involve visibility, might involve 100 other things other than what is the best way to put lights on in Yorktown, in North Castle, in Newcastle, in Bedford, in Lewisboro, in Pound Ridge. So, Chief Noble, please share us your experiences and realities. Thank you much for your professionalism.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Good morning, everybody. It's been a rough last 6 days. I do want to speak to a few local emergencies that we currently have, and then I need to thank a lot of people too. What I do want to say first is that because the roads you see blacktop, that doesn't mean everything's okay out there. The primary concern that we have right now is we have over a foot of snow here, and we have downed wires. Many of them we cannot see. Treat every downed line as an energized line. Do not go near it. If you see one that causes a hazardous condition across a roadway, you can call us here at the Yorktown Police Department or your local police department, please. If it's on your property, please call your energy service provider, NYSEG or Con Ed, and better yet, hit them up online as well, because if you put something in writing, you can't get away from it. You've made that notification. Guardrails. If an energy line, if a utility line is coming in contact with a guardrail, it charges that guardrail. That may happen miles away from where you currently are. It is important. Don't lean on anything. Don't touch any signs or poles. These things could be energized, and we could have tragic results. When you're driving on the roadways in any local community, you'll notice traffic signals may be inoperable, and we just can't man every intersection. When a traffic signal is not working, it is a four-way stop sign. The kids who take their permit test may know that because they're fresh off of it, but a lot of us who drive every day don't realize that. And we've had some near misses and we've had some accidents in town. So if you're out there watching, there's a lesson learned for you too. You come up on an inoperable traffic signal, it's a four-way stop sign. As far as thanking people, it's when you get tested, that's when you find out how good you really are. And I'm proud of my police force, the men and women who work here at the Yorktown Police Department. They have really, really pulled it together the last 6 days and provided a valuable service to our community. I think it's evidence behind me. Our town government, county government, our senator, county executive, the state, they're fighting for our residents. And our residents deserve that. Our town workers deserve that. And they're here. And I can't thank them enough for realizing what we've been going through here. They've heard our cries. They're here in town. They honestly are trying to make a difference. The governor's office is here as well. We had national service members bunk in with us last night, all right? They stayed out here overnight. We used their Humvees to check on people with critical care. We are using every resource that's been thrown at us, and we'll keep asking, and we're getting, thankfully. Your town workers are on fumes right now in this town. The highway department, Dave Paganelli, all the town workers that are out there plowing, just an unbelievable job. To speak of the danger that they have, we had a highway worker stuck in his truck for over 2 hours because he was entangled in utility wires. He couldn't get out of his car. And that's another thing. If you ever do have that situation, do not exit your vehicle unless it's a life or death situation, unless your car's on fire. And if you have to get out of it, you need to clear that vehicle and not be in contact with it and land on both of your feet at the same time. That poor guy was in that truck for 2 hours last night while the winds howled and trees snapped around him. And I'm just glad we got him out of there. Again, the highway department, unbelievable job. Our local fire departments, Yorktown, Mohegan Lake, the ambulance corps people, the medics. You know what? Like I said, the town needed us to rally around them, and I damn sure think we did. all right? And it's still ongoing. We have a warming shelter that's been open for 6 days. We have volunteers from our community manning that warming station, and we're there to help them as well. And lastly, I need to thank our community, the Yorktown community, the residents of this town. At the PD, we often tell our community, help us help you. And usually it's for fighting crime and keeping this town the wonderful community that it is. But now we're asking you for a different reason. We need you to stay off the roads, and we need you to report hazardous conditions, and just to be mindful. Don't take unnecessary risks with your life. Just don't take that for granted, all right? Be cautious, use extreme caution if you're out there. And again, I can't thank all the people behind me enough, really. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you very much.
I'm sorry. One guy I left out.
Please do. No, go.
The state police, Dave Atkins, he's back here. They were helping us direct traffic Monday morning when rush hour came. You know what? Unbelievable cooperation between law enforcement community, all of our agencies within this county. Whether we need the county, whether we need the state, they've got our backs, and that's important for us. Thank you, Dave. All right.
Thank you,
Sorry.
Chief. No, by all means, happy to do it. So we have here a host of people. I mentioned before Todd Westsize from New York State DOT. We've got from the New York State Police, the county, local officials and so forth. So we'll open it up to questions. Any questions you might have from any individuals.
You said you're calling for the heads of these utilities to resign. Is that still your stance? And
Yes.
If they don't, what actions are you
Well,
planning to take?
I believe that, and I'm not just limiting it to the chief executive officers. Most of the time, these decisions are not made by one individual. And sometimes in corporations, you'll sacrifice one individual. There is a structural problem, Michelle, in the management decision-making process of these utilities. I've observed two over the course of the last 7 days as an executive within a crisis situation. What have I seen? I've seen no personal commitment and involvement in the case of Con Edison. I've seen a little bit, but not much from NYSEG, where personally the senior management team comes out to see for themselves what the crisis is at hand. Number two, they have gotten multiple inputs that their communication system is flawed. The system of robocalls, inaccurate. What's posted on their website, inaccurate. They didn't take anything down, reconfigure it, and put it back up. Information that was available to the municipalities, in specific, they set target dates on Monday and Tuesday for completion, which they did not hit. Now, it's possible people can miss target dates, but there wasn't an advisory as they were going along saying, we set a date of Monday night or Tuesday night to accomplish something. We're not getting close to it. Let me tell you that now, not just we don't know when the target date is, let us show you, as our partners in solving this problem, what are the metrics by which we intend to attack it. And what do I mean by that? How many crews do we have? We have 50 crews on the road as an imaginary number. A crew can handle 2 or 3 incidents a day, maybe 5. I don't know how many they can. But there's a finite amount of incidents they can handle. And they could just as easily have called the supervisor of a town or the police chief with the supervisor and say, if we can give you 2 crews that can handle 8 incidents in your town, what are the 8 most important places? Did anybody get a call like that in any of your communities? Anybody? No. No. Because the senior management teams kept for themselves the prerogative of allocating resources without sufficient input. Now, they hear on these conference calls, this is where I really decided this was the wrong direction. In the conference calls, they had employees, and these are people who are public information people who were given a mission of what they have to say. I don't blame them for what happened. They were taking input from elected officials and from appointed officials, but they weren't giving feedback based on that information. And as I listened to that, I understood that to be a breakdown in management structure and implementation. Not just, I'm mad at an individual. Now, we're all compensated at different levels. The senior management of utilities are compensated at very high levels, and I don't begrudge them the money that they make. But to me, that means you are a superior management officer, and you respond with superior judgment and superior incident. In an organization like the state police or like the local police, you have rank. People earn ranks. They go from sergeant, detective, sergeant, lieutenant, captain for reasons of demonstrated ability. When you reach the top of a management team of these companies, I look at them as men and women of terrific managerial experience. But I don't see that. I don't hear that. And I started out, those who follow me on social media, I know my friend Mark Lingariello does. On the second day of the storm, I was counseling people, be patient, let's work together, do what's prudent. We're putting pressure on them. You know, I use the British phrase, keep calm and carry on. But after 4 and 5 and 6 days, I didn't see the response to that type of encouragement, and I began to realize they're not playing fair. They're not doing the right thing. So I want to see management change. Can I effectuate the change? As an advocate only. But I will tell you this much: I am serious about this. I'll speak to this more tomorrow, and this is what it comes down to. And I can't speak for every other elected official here. Everybody has their own philosophies. You run on your own. If you're not in office to articulate the feelings of the people that put you there, what are you in office for? That's what I did yesterday, and that's what I'm doing now. I'm articulating the feelings of hundreds upon hundreds of Westchester residents that not just want to know how come I got bad information, but who are the people making these decisions that treat us with such disrespect? Any other questions? Yes, sir.
What kind of arrangements does the county have with private contractors to remove snow, debris, trees?
Well, the county has its own workforce through its DPW force, and what we've done is made it available at the request of different municipalities. I believe yesterday we were assisting the town of Cortland to amplify their DPW efforts. We have people who are as experienced as the municipal DPW people are in removing impediments in the road. I don't know how our force is deployed today, but I know it is available. And I would suspect that as this town and other towns assess how many places they have to work and how much they have available, that our full-time employees will work to help them do that. When we contract out for specific tasks that we have to do within county-owned property. So, for example, there are trees down in Lasden, but that's not of the urgency. So we'll deal with that at some point in time in the future. If to get it ready to open on time, we have to go out and contract, then we will go out and contract. But our workforce will be put to work as long as we've covered the things that we're legally responsible for, like the Bronx River Parkway and those areas where there is public involvement and contact with the parks or recreation system.
Would it make much of a difference if the county did have arrangements with private contractors?
Well, you have to understand that the missing link here was not having DPW services to remove impediments in the road. The National Guard that was called in did that, so the manpower was there. And the professional ability to, take out the chainsaws, slice the tree up, and move the tree out of the road, that was there in every one of these communities, in my judgment, sufficiently. What wasn't there was the technical skill of the utility worker to be there and be able to assess the live wire, to be able to authorize the shutoff of the power that then enabled the DPW, the National Guard, and whatever the county's support factor would be in slicing it up. So when I hear a utility person say, well, we can't do that, and we can't restore power until the impediment is removed, what they're saying is the third step of the process can't happen until the second step happens. That's correct. What they're not saying is the first step is the utility being out there to secure the wiring. And it's a very subtle way to put the burden back on the municipality when, in fact, the initial burden belongs to the utility.
There's a potential for another storm next Monday. What are your plans for that?
We plan to be staffed up. We're going to maintain our state of emergency. We intend to continue to do what we've been doing all along as a county government, being able to provide what resources we can to the local governments to continue to operate the Emergency Operations Center, to continue to use the county center if we need to continue to use Playland as a staging area if we need to, and for our essential employees to make sure that they're working around the clock. We had a very difficult weather day yesterday. We had non-essential county employees stay home. That's a relatively unusual statement, but we made that decision because we felt less people on the road, less people in jeopardy when the snow falls. But our essential employees, like the local essential employees, are working long shifts, and the people who are at the county center, whether we have one person, 100 people, and no people at the warming center, it's staffed by people who are there working overtime. and that is also time away from their families. And we appreciate that contribution, but we're going to continue to make that effort that we make. Our Office for the Aging is involved in nutrition distribution in many communities, and in those days where we think, like a snowstorm day, where we think there's going to be inability of the constituents to get to the nutrition centers, then we have an external distribution system of that, and we'll do that as well through our senior programs.
Is Con Ed and NYSEG giving you good, hard numbers town by town throughout the area now?
Well, I'll use the same quote I used yesterday. I don't know, Lanny, if you have your situation. I used the quote that Ronald Reagan used when he was negotiating with Gorbachev. I know bringing up Russians is kind of a touchy thing in the society today. But what he said at the time in Russian to Gorbachev was, "Dovernai no provenyai, trust but verify." We're given numbers which we have reported to you, and I have no reason not to trust them on the face of it, but I want to see verification of it. I want to know from the people in the field in Somers and Yorktown, these are accurate numbers, because there are things you can do that can make the numbers look different. Let me give you an example of it. If we send out, or let's say utility company sends out a call. If you have power, press 1. If you don't have power, press 2. If you have power, you press 1. Now you're registered as having power. If you don't have power, press 2. Well, if you don't have power, you don't get the call, you don't press 2. So when the statistics come back in, you'll see a certain number of people who pressed number 1, I have power, and a certain number of people who didn't respond. Now, maybe you had power and you just didn't respond. Or maybe you never had power and you never got it. And that could affect the numbers that you report. So when I look at the numbers, I don't immediately assume that the numbers are wrong. But I said on Sunday, a couple of you might have covered me on Sunday, when I read the numbers and they projected that they would be done by NYSEG by Monday afternoon and Con Ed by Tuesday afternoon, I said, look, I doubt these numbers. I don't think they're going to hit these numbers. How do I judge that? Because I'm driving around every single day and night since this thing hit on Friday. And by the way, except for yesterday, it was terrible, I don't have a police escort with me. I don't walk around with an entourage. I get in the car and I drive and I go up and down streets. They don't know I'm the county executive. I'm just driving around and looking. I see something, I double back around. My staff is crazy that I do this stuff at night. My family thinks I'm nuts, but I see for myself. And then I want to know, when did the chief executive of Con Edison see for himself?